Hi, everyone. We're here to talk about getting on the fastest path to your next job. Most job searches take too long, and it's not your fault. Most people think job searches take months because the market is too competitive. They need more experience. They're just not standing out. And the truth is, most people are following a broken system. They're applying online, typically without a strategy, and they're experiencing what they call ghosting. They're not seeing traction. It's very low percentage rates where they're actually getting interviews. They've got generic LinkedIn profiles. They're blending in instead of standing out. They're waiting for recruiters. I spoke last week about the myth of the recruiter on the white horse. And yes, they're waiting for the recruiter to ride in on the white horse and swoop them off their feet and deposit them to their dream job. They think they can hire recruiters. They can't. So they're waiting for recruiters instead of positioning themselves as the top choice. Your job search doesn't need to take months and months and months. It takes strategy. If you are ready to get on the fastest path to your next job, drop me a ready in the comments. Or if your job search is something you don't want people to know about, then go ahead and send me a DM and keep it just between us. Either way, it's fine. Drop me a ready if you're excited to learn a faster way. So what we're going to do today is we're going to get ourselves a fancy schmancy fast car. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. I have a 3-step framework that I have used coaching thousands of people over the last 20 years. Step 1 is target. Get clear on your ideal role, what you have to offer, and what you're looking from your next role. Most job seekers say, I'll take anything, and that's why they get nowhere. I remember I've hired thousands of people in my career and conducted 12,000 interviews. Sometimes I would ask people, why do you want to work for us? And sometimes people would answer me in a really scary place for themselves, really honestly, and say, I just need a job. Unfortunately, that's not the right answer to that question. It doesn't actually help you get the job. So let's talk about what target looks like. You need to be really clear about the exact role in companies that you want, that move your career forward, that move you forward to what you want. And you need to be really clear about what you have to offer. And if you're looking to make a change, you have to be clear about what is the step towards that change I'm going to make to get me to where I want to be, because it's not possible, especially in a wonky employment market. And wonky is my nice word for the last 2-3 years. Yes. And yes, it has been wonky since like late 2022, in case you weren't paying attention. So it's been wonky for a while now. And we have to be really clear about what we bring to the table and what we want. And if what we want is a change, we might need to make an incremental change to move us towards the change. But let's really dive into what target really means. So you want to be really clear on what's in it for them. What do you bring to the table? What experience in your role do you have? What experience in an industry do you have? And what outside or other things, my superpower cocktail system, actually make you more attractive for the role? If you wanted to break into sports law, and you weren't an athlete, that might be an issue. But if you were an athlete and then you worked for university general counsel and you were dealing with some of the legal matters that their athletics department handles, you've got something that somebody with some sexy legal experience may not bring to the table. If you are a mechanical engineer who wants to become a product manager, and there's this tech startup with an app, and the customers are all contractors, and you worked for your uncles for 8 years in high school and college every summer, it's your first product management role. You don't have a software engineering background, but they're going to like you because you know the customer, kind of valuable in product, right? So there's all different real life examples that I have from the gazillion people I've worked with over the last 20 years and the thousands of people I've hired and the 12,000 I've interviewed about the different ways that you bring things to the table beyond your hardcore experience. So, knowing what you have to offer and knowing what you want from your next role. That's both what kinds of environments do I thrive in, and it's also what experience do I want to acquire that will move me towards a longer term goal. So that's all our normal stuff. Now, if you're that subcategory of I want to make a huge change, then we have another thing we do. So if you want to make a huge change in what you're doing, sometimes you have to take a role more closely aligned with what you've been doing in a company that has people doing the thing you want to do. And then if that company pays for certifications and continuing ed, then you go ahead and you'll work on that while you're doing the job that you've got the stronger experience in. But your game plan is to move laterally within the organization to the thing you want to do. This is a really smart, fastest path to making a huge change in your career. Super, super fast. Okay. Now, knowing where you thrive, what your best and worst experiences have been historically, very helpful. Knowing what size and stage of company either needs what you do or fits you. So when companies are growing, I see it a little like child development. Of course I do, because I see everything through the lens of my first career. And so I was a teacher. I taught 2.5 to 6-year-olds French in Montessori schools. I taught ninth graders how to pass the citizenship test that was required in the state of Maryland to graduate from high school a number of years ago. And I also taught economics and U.S. history. I also ran youth and family services for the YMCA. So everything that wasn't athletics or aquatics that involved kindergartners through 12th graders, I ran that program. And so I do see things through a lens that's very developmental. It's developmental theory, actually. If you want to go geek out with me about that, it's developmental theory. And I look at venture-backed tech startups through that lens. So you've got everything from the 3 people working on a startup idea to a massive Fortune 500 tech company that is publicly traded and everything in between. So in those, I see them as having there's 5 different stages. And just like a newborn and a toddler and a 2nd grader and a 6th grader and a 10th grader have very different developmental needs, so do those companies at those different stages. And most of us are well suited to one of those stages. So yes, some roles only exist at certain stages, but when it comes to our gifts and our talents, most of us are suited to one stage. My stage is the order out of chaos stage. I don't like chaos all the time. I don't like doing 50% of the work and then, oh, wait, let's throw that away. No, that's not my jam. I also am not bureaucracy, slow moving, valuing that versus getting things done, stay in a teeny tiny bucket, um, do the same things over and over again. That's not my cup of tea. I love taking the chaos and creating order. That is my jam. And that's what I did at that FinTech startup. And I was the right person at the right time for the right stage of their development. And it started with one department, and there were problems. And if they didn't get fixed, it was no bueno. And the CEO's like, who's going to fix this problem? And he asked the 3 top people that he trusted who could fix the problem. They said Wendy Taylor. He'd barely spoken to me. He shows up at my desk. He's looking around at my desk. He sees this filing system I had for how I tracked things. And he's looking at that and he says, tell me about that. I told him. The next day I was called into his office and given a job that, let's see here, it was like a 25% pay increase. I was a manager instead of leading a small team. I was managing a department with like 20 people, but the big job was fix the broken stuff. And then once that was done, it was like, okay, what else can you fix? Oh, here we have another problem. Can you fix that? Oh, here we have a problem with this client. Can you fix that? Kept doing it. So that story is about knowing what size and stage your superpowers are valuable for. So we've got sizes and stages of companies. We've got best and worst experiences that tell us where you thrive and where you don't thrive. We've got knowing how your talents and skills and your whole superpower cocktail, what makes you attractive to the right company, and what experience do you need to acquire to get where you want to be going. So all of that is part of the target process. Now, there's also a trends component. And, some people are not really into this, but trends is looking at things like what industries or what types of tech are positioned to thrive in the current economic, technology, and social trends. Which ones are posed to thrive? So even if the company you go to work for is badly managed and it has to lay off people or it goes under, others in that space are going to be thriving because there are trends supporting them thriving. That's an important part of the puzzle. It's not sexy. Most people would rather focus on their superpower cocktail than that. But it is part of the puzzle. There's also things like, what are you looking for in a leadership team? And part of what you're looking for in a leadership team, for the last 3 years, I've been telling people, you want people in the C-suite who were executives in 08, 09. And if you don't mind a little gray hair on your executive team, not that all of us have gray hair, post 9/11. The reason I suggest that is you want some people on the leadership team who have been through the last time things got wonky. And so the wonky we've been going through for the last 3 years, the wonky we went through in 08, 09, the wonky we went through post 9/11. They have things in common as far as the business world. You want people in leadership at the company you go to work for who've been through this before, who've had to lay people off before, because if they've done it, if they've survived, they've been a leader in similar times, they're going to make smarter decisions now, and they're less likely to need to lay people off. Trust me, I was in leadership post 9/11, and I was making those kinds of decisions. It is valuable. Okay, so the trends are part of the puzzle. Then I gave you that little tip about experienced leadership. So we've got all the trend stuff. We've got your talents and skills. We've got how it supports your long-term goals. We've got your superpower cocktail. We've got your places that you thrive, your best and worst. We've got your sizes and stages, what what size company really fits you, and we've got trends. Now, if you realize, based on what I said, that you are lacking clarity in your job search, drop me a target in the comments or send me a DM with target so I know this is speaking to you. You're like, oh Lord, I just thought I have this title and I'm just going after these jobs and I'll take anything and I just need volume. Or I'm waiting for Mr. Perfect and I'm not going to do any applying, whatever it is. If I just outlined components of a strategy that you don't have, I want to know. Drop me a target in the comments. Okay, now, step 2 is your brand. Now, most people think this is step 1. They're like, okay, I need a new job. I need to work on my resume and my LinkedIn profile. Well, you can't do that until you know what you want and what you have to offer. And let's remember, this isn't fluff, this branding stuff. Hiring managers are not playing a guessing game. They need to choose the person who looks like the best investment because they have produced the results that the hiring manager needs produced in this role. So, getting really clear on what you want and what you have to offer is the first step. That's target. Then we need to produce your branding materials that support that tell the stories about what you have accomplished that are most relevant to the hiring managers that you want to work for. So when it comes to your resume and the experience section on your LinkedIn, we're talking about strong active verb, measurable result. Strong active verb, measurable result. Can we get an amen from you all? Strong active verb, measurable result. This is not a list of your responsibilities. It's a list of what you got done. You want to highlight the right achievements also. So you might be most proud of a certain achievement, and maybe your old employer was most proud of a certain achievement. But we need to be looking at this through the lens of the new employer. What do they care about? That's what's important. I have a template that I now use with my clients. I used to not have a template. I love this template. And we really have 3 versions of it. We have the new grad version of it. We have the regular version of it. And we have the I've been promoted 3 times at the same company version of it. But what it does is it has basically where people used to have those paragraphs, those summaries, and it started with executives, but then it became a thing for everybody. Well, nobody reads paragraphs anymore. So we have what I think of as a highlight reel, but it's basically a strong declarative sentence about really what you bring to the table. And then 3 bullets about the most important to your future hiring manager things you've accomplished. Then we've got your full-on chronology. And there we've got our approach to writing that with the strong active verb and measurable results. Then we have, if you're in certain kinds of roles, a section where we've got skills. It's usually in super technical roles where we want to see what technology you've used. Please, for the love, do not put Microsoft products or Google products on there. We're talking about CRMs and programming languages and much more complicated things. And then, of course, we have your academic background. Slightly different way of doing it if somebody is a new grad, but basically the same thing. Why I love this template is it makes it easy for you to customize it, because what we're about on the fastest path is a strong strategy and then taking effective action on a regular basis. So we want every minute we spend to be on effective things, not wasting time. We're not rewriting our resume from scratch over and over and over again instead of actually doing the things we need to do to get into conversations and or interviews with employers. So once we've dialed in what you're going for, we develop your resume. And yes, the cool thing about the template is we can just flip the order of your accomplishments. And that way we can highlight the ones most relevant to that job. Easy peasy, efficient, effective. That's what we're going for, because we want this to be the fastest path. So we dial in the resume. The LinkedIn profile is obviously so much more than a resume. So obviously your experience section, not obviously, experience section in your resume, experience section on your LinkedIn profile. Then we're thinking about the branding of your background photo, your headshot, your headline under your name, your about section. What story does that need to tell? Highlighting volunteering experiences, because that actually just makes you a more likable person. Will all the people read it? Of course not. Will somebody read it at some point? Maybe. So all of those things go into that LinkedIn profile. Then there's the skills section. The skills section, we want the skills most relevant to the next job you're going to do. We want the top 2 to be the super relevant to the next job you're looking for, because those are the only ones visible without clicking to see more. Now, there are recruiters doing searches, Boolean and otherwise, for certain kinds of talent because their company either doesn't have the brand or the talent is so rare that they have to go looking for the talent. And anything that's on your skills thing, yes, that's going to show up if they're doing a Boolean search. That's true. But you want it to be really easy for when you show up on one of their searches, for them to see that you have done the thing that they need done in the role they need to fill. That's the point. Okay. If you realize that you wrote your resume and LinkedIn profile without all of this in mind, then drop me a brand in the comments if you know my resume and or LinkedIn need a refresh. Drop that in the comments or drop that in the DMs. Either way, I want to know, do you realize that you put the cart before the horse and you have problems? Next up, our third step is connecting. That's landing interviews and offers and impressing. That's the offer part. So connect is landing interviews and impress is landing offers. Even great candidates struggle if they don't know how to convert applications into interviews. One of those is, how do you use your network? Because most people's definition of networking is disrespectful of others' time, ineffective use of your own time, and doesn't actually get anything done. I remember talking to a client a few months ago, and I said, we need to light a fire under your job search. Applications alone aren't going to work because of specific circumstances for you. And there are plenty of people in that boat. And so we need to do my connect strategy. And she kind of wrinkled up her nose and pursed her lips. And she said, oh, that networking stuff. Like, well, yeah, that networking stuff doesn't work. Sending your resume to everybody you know. Doing a post on LinkedIn saying, hey, I need a job. Let me know if you have any ideas. That's just outsourcing your job search to somebody else. It's disrespectful and it's ineffective. So we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is have thoughtful conversations that are strategic, that ask the right questions, that open the right doors. And if you want to know about that, you need to let me know. And I'll be happy to talk with you about that. Most people today, there still is a segment of the population that can just apply to jobs. But more than half of the people I work with these days need to supplement that. So there's applying to the right jobs the right way. That's step one. Are there enough jobs for you to apply to the right way? then we need to do something else. Or is there something about your background that no matter how good our resume and LinkedIn is, that method isn't going to really convert to interviews? Then we need to do the something else. But we start with applying, and we also start with seeking employee referrals. And we start with that, and we do that, and we do it in sprints, and we see if it works. We track our data, and if it doesn't work, we have other things we do. Then we launch Connect Strategy, which is a systemic process of building a funnel of very strategic conversations that respect others' time and are an effective use of yours, that get you into conversations that open doors. So we're going to network the right way. We're going to rock our interviews. We're going to rock our interviews both with the questions we ask and our answers to their questions. And we are working the inner game and the outer game of interviews. And then we're going to follow up. I talked to somebody once about working with him on his job search. And somehow he started talking, he went on a rant about thank you notes. And he was like, I volunteer for my university, talking to potential incoming freshmen, kids who are applying, and I want to see, and basically when the kids meet with alumni and they send thank you notes, it doesn't do anything to change the outcome of whether they get into the school. Thank you notes are a waste of time. I will never send a thank you note. And I thought, you will never work with me. So follow-up does include a thank you note, but thank you notes are not just some like fluffy handwritten card thing. They are a strategic follow-up tool, and they're also just good human. But there's a lot of strategy to that. You want to do that. And then you also need to do some other things in your follow-up process, because follow-up wins job offers. Now, if you've ever been a solopreneur, you know darn well you have to follow up on leads. Well, guess what? A job search is a little like being a solopreneur, and you need to follow up on your leads. If you know that even if you think you're good at interviews, you could probably improve your game, and you sure as heck don't have a strategy on the follow-up part, if you're realizing that applications alone aren't going to convert to interviews and you want to learn more about the the Connect strategy, drop me a connect in the comments or in my DMs, so I know that is really speaking to you today. This is where the weak spot in your job search strategy is. Now, if you want my fastest path cheat sheet, comment fast track, and I will get that for you. If you would like to do this even faster by having one-on-one coaching and an amazing program that supports you every step of the way, drop me a coach and I'll get you the details. I have a couple slots open right now, and I want to make sure the right people get those. Your job search is in your hands. Let's get you hired fast.